It happened in front of hundreds of people during a bright afternoon charity gala. A billionaire placed a velvet box on the stage, looked at his only daughter with tears hiding behind his proud smile, and told her to choose the man she wanted to marry before sunset. Everyone expected her to walk toward a famous entrepreneur, a powerful politician's son, or a wealthy investor waiting confidently in the front row. Instead, she stepped past every expensive suit in the audience and stopped before a quiet, poorly dressed single father who had only attended because he had repaired the event's damaged delivery truck that morning. Gasps spread through the crowd as she gently took his hand, and in that unforgettable moment, the richest man in the city looked more shocked than anyone else did. If you believe kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances can change lives, please like this video, leave a comment, share this story with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our growing community. Magnus Ellsworth had spent 40 years building an empire that stretched across shipping, construction, technology, and healthcare. Newspapers called him the king of industry, but behind the headlines was an aging father haunted by one painful truth. Every fortune he had built had slowly built a wall between his family and the rest of the world. His daughter, Elara Ellsworth, had grown up surrounded by luxury yet constantly searched for something money could never purchase. She spent her weekends volunteering at community centers, children's hospitals, and neighborhood food banks, quietly refusing media attention. Many believed her kindness was only a phase that would disappear once she accepted the responsibilities of leading the family business. They could not have been more wrong. Across town lived Callum Mercer, a widowed mechanic whose small repair garage barely earned enough to keep the lights on. 5 years earlier, a highway accident had taken his wife, leaving him to raise his cheerful 7-year-old daughter, Nora. Every morning began with sunlight pouring through cracked apartment windows as Callum packed Nora's lunch, braided her messy blonde hair after watching online tutorials for weeks, and walked her to school before opening his garage. His clothes were stained with grease, his hands were rough from years of honest labor, and every paycheck disappeared into rent, groceries, school supplies, and medical bills from Nora's childhood asthma. Yet no customer ever left his garage feeling cheated. People trusted him because he repaired more than engines. He restored hope in people who thought no one would treat them fairly anymore. That afternoon, the charity foundation hosting the gala faced disaster when a delivery truck carrying medical equipment broke down just blocks away. The event coordinator desperately searched for help until someone recommended Callum's tiny garage. Without asking who owned the truck or whether anyone could pay him immediately, he grabbed his tools and fixed the engine beneath the warm afternoon sun. While everyone rushed the supplies inside, Callum quietly gathered his equipment and prepared to leave. The organizers insisted he stay for lunch as a gesture of gratitude, handing him a simple visitor's badge. He stood near the back of the crowd, uncomfortable among people wearing watches worth more than everything he owned. Elara noticed him long before anyone else did. She had watched from a distance as he smiled patiently at a frightened volunteer who thought she had delayed the repairs by asking too many questions. Instead of showing frustration, he had explained every step with kindness, making the young volunteer laugh despite the stressful situation. Later she saw him remove a sandwich from his own lunch bag and give it to an elderly groundskeeper who admitted he had skipped breakfast. No photographers captured those moments. No executives applauded. He simply believed helping people was normal. Magnus stepped onto the stage later that afternoon to announce a surprise. After surviving a recent health scare, he wanted to see his daughter happily married while he could still celebrate with her. He invited several accomplished men whom he believed were suitable matches. They represented wealth, influence, education, and prestige. Smiling confidently, he announced that Elara was free to choose any one of them. The audience applauded, assuming the decision would strengthen business alliances worth billions. Instead, Elara slowly walked away from the decorated stage and continued through the crowd until she reached Callum. He looked behind himself, believing she must be searching for someone else. When she gently reached for his weathered hand, silence swallowed the entire courtyard. Magnus felt humiliated. Reporters immediately raised cameras. Investors whispered nervously. His closest advisors urged him to stop the spectacle before it damaged the family's reputation. Yet Alara stood calmly beside Callum, explaining that every wealthy man her father had introduced spoke proudly about achievements, profits, and ambition. The only man she had seen that day who expected nothing in return for helping strangers was standing beside her. She wasn't choosing money because she already had enough for several lifetimes. She was choosing character. Callum's face turned red with embarrassment. He respectfully admitted he could never belong in her world. He explained that he owned nothing except an aging garage, a small apartment, and the greatest responsibility of his life, his daughter. He believed Alara deserved someone whose life matched hers. Before he could leave, Nora came running across the courtyard after her teacher brought her from school. She had drawn a thank you picture for her father because someone told her he had helped save a charity event. She hugged him tightly without noticing the stunned crowd. Alara knelt beside Nora, admired the colorful drawing, and spent several minutes talking with the little girl. Nora laughed easily, proudly describing how her father burned pancakes almost every Saturday but always made funny faces until breakfast became enjoyable anyway. Those innocent stories touched everyone listening. Even Magnus quietly lowered his eyes. The following weeks became the hardest period of everyone's lives. Social media exploded with criticism. Commentators accused Alara of seeking publicity. Wealthy families mocked Callum for dreaming above his place. Strangers appeared outside his garage taking photographs. Several longtime clients stopped coming because they assumed he would become rich overnight. Ironically, his income fell even further. Magnus privately offered Callum a generous payment to quietly disappear from his daughter's life. Callum refused without anger. He explained that no amount of money could buy his dignity, but neither would he pressure Alara into choosing him. If she ever realized she deserved someone else, he would accept her decision peacefully. Those words lingered in Magnus' thoughts. For the first time in years, someone had rejected his fortune without demanding more. Alara continued visiting Callum's garage during the daytime whenever her schedule allowed. She learned how difficult honest survival could be. She watched customers delay repairs because they could not afford them. She saw Callum quietly reduce bills for struggling parents and elderly neighbors. When she asked why he never advertised these generous acts, he simply smiled and replied that kindness loses something precious the moment it becomes a performance. Meanwhile, Nora slowly formed a beautiful friendship with Alara. They planted flowers outside the garage, read books together during lunch breaks, and organized weekend toy collections for children in local shelters. The little girl had spent years missing a mother's warmth, while Alara discovered a family connection she had secretly longed for. Magnus remained unconvinced until one sunny afternoon he decided to visit the garage without informing anyone. He expected to uncover some hidden motive. Instead, he found Callum lying beneath an old pickup truck while patiently teaching an unemployed teenager how to repair engines. Rather than charging tuition, Callum believed learning a skill could keep the young man away from crime and help him build a future. As Magnus observed unnoticed, an elderly woman arrived carrying a broken lawn mower. She apologized because she could only afford half the repair cost. Callum accepted the money, repaired the machine completely, and secretly slipped half the payment back into her shopping bag while she thanked him. She never noticed. Magnus stood frozen. He suddenly remembered his own father, a factory worker who had once shared his final meal with a hungry stranger despite having almost nothing. Somewhere during decades of chasing success, Magnus had forgotten the lesson that built his first business: wealth should serve people, not replace humanity. Life delivered another unexpected challenge when Nora suffered a severe asthma attack during a school sports event. Callum rushed to the hospital terrified that he might lose the only family he had left. Alara arrived within minutes, cancelled an important corporate meeting, and stayed beside them all afternoon. Magnus quietly followed later after hearing the news, watching Alara comfort the frightened child while Callum held Nora's tiny hand revealed something impossible to ignore. They already behaved like a family. Not because of promises or ceremonies, but because love had quietly grown through countless ordinary moments of sacrifice. After Nora recovered, Magnus invited Callum to his estate for lunch. The atmosphere remained tense, but instead of discussing marriage or business, Magnus asked one simple question. He wanted to know why Callum never became bitter after losing his wife, struggling financially, and facing public humiliation. Callum looked toward the bright gardens outside the window before answering that bitterness would have stolen the only gift he could still give his daughter. Nora deserved a father who believed tomorrow could always become better than today. Every difficult morning offered another chance to become the man she believed he already was. Magnus felt tears forming despite years of teaching himself never to cry. Over the next several months, the billionaire quietly changed. He expanded scholarships for trade schools, funded community repair workshops, invested in affordable housing, and required his companies to create apprenticeship programs for single parents rebuilding their lives. Employees noticed their intimidating chairman smiled more often. Meetings focused less on quarterly profits and more on long-term impact. Eventually another charity celebration filled the same courtyard where everything had begun. This time there were no expectations, no arranged introductions, and no business negotiations. Magnus stepped onto the stage and admitted publicly that he had measured success with the wrong ruler for most of his life. He confessed that he had searched for a wealthy husband for his daughter while overlooking the priceless qualities standing quietly among ordinary people every day that he walked down from the stage carrying no velvet box, no contracts, and no conditions. Instead, he embraced Callum like the son he never expected to find. The crowd erupted into heartfelt applause, not because a poor man had entered a rich family, but because pride had finally surrendered to love. Ilara and Callum married during a beautiful afternoon ceremony in a garden filled with children from charities they had supported together. There were no extravagant displays meant to impress society. Nora scattered flower petals with joyful laughter, proudly announcing to everyone that she finally had the family she had always wished for. Guests cried as Magnus welcomed Callum not for his bank account but for the example he had given an entire city. Years later, the old garage remained open. Callum refused to abandon the work that had shaped his character. Ilara often spent afternoons there helping organize free repair days for struggling families, while Magnus occasionally arrived carrying coffee for the mechanics and listening to stories instead of giving speeches. The billionaire discovered a happiness that decades of luxury had never provided. Wealth had built his mansion, but humility had finally built his home. Before this story comes to its close, leave a meaningful comment and tell us this. Do you believe true character is more valuable than money, or can wealth and kindness exist together when the heart stays humble? Your thoughts may inspire someone who needs hope today. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Remember that the greatest treasures in life are rarely found inside bank accounts. They are found in faithful hearts, forgiving spirits, quiet acts of kindness, and the courage to choose love when the whole world expects something else. Sometimes the richest future begins the very moment someone decides that compassion is worth more than every fortune on earth.